off with $1,000 or more and collect the letters to spell the word RUSH for a chance to win one of 3 brand new Toyota Rush SUVs. Yes, you heard it right. 3 brand new Toyota Rush SUVs.
Drive in style for the summer. Hey, Digicel Summer Rush.
Start topping up now.
This is the news on top of the hour.
Live from our studio in Georgetown.
Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 FM.
Hey, this
Good evening, welcome to this evening's newscast right here on Kaieteur Radio. Kevin Smith here. Without further ado, let's get to the news in detail. After being sworn into office on the heels of a most tumultuous general and regional elections in 2020, the President Irfaan Ali had pledged that transparency would be one of the key hallmarks in the oil and gas sector. But after 1 year of being in office, a noticeable information deficit still persists. To date, Guyanese have not seen a single local content report which ExxonMobil submits to the government on a quarterly basis. Production reports on the Stabroek block have not been released, and the report on the audit of $460 million ExxonMobil claims was spent pre-2015 in search of oil remains cloaked in secrecy. Also hidden from the public's eye, despite a promise that it would be released, is a report that was done by Canadian consultant Alison Redford. The former politician, who is tainted by scandals regarding the misappropriation of tax dollars, had spearheaded the review of the field development plan for ExxonMobil's $9 billion pay-hour project in the Stabroek block. And in other news, Esso has contracted a fleet of helicopters from Bristow, an international air transportation company specializing in helicopter services. But with its ramped-up activities in Guyana's exclusive economic zone, the company is now looking to secure the services of additional suppliers. According to the invitation for interested parties, Esso intends to establish an enabling agreement for the provision of offshore helicopter and passenger handling services. Esso said it is looking to identify suppliers who can provide air transportation in support of offshore exploration development activities. Notably, the suppliers will be required, but not limited, to supply appropriate aircraft. And moving on, President Irfaan Ali has said that the confirmation of the Chancellor and the Chief Justice is dependent on the opposition leader, Joseph Harmon, recognizing his government as legitimate. During a press engagement yesterday to mark 1 year since swearing into office, the President called on Harmon to concede to the legitimacy of his government so that they can move forward with other orders of business. Ali said the failure by Harmon to recognize him as legitimately elected has prevented any form of consultation. Earlier this year, the opposition leader made a public call on the president to confirm the acting chancellor of the judiciary and the acting chief justice. Back then, it was noted how regrettable it is that Guyana remains without a substantive chancellor and chief justice. And moving on. On June 29th, Chief Justice Roxanne George Wiltshire handed down a judgment in a dispute between the state-owned NISL and various persons who would have leased Sugar Estate lands from the company. The ruling effectively bars the state-owned privatization company from reclaiming lands that it leased to several individuals and entities. The ruling, as well as the state's intention to appeal, as highlighted by NISL's attorney-at-law Devendra Kissoon, signals the production of another hurdle that can hinder the timeline of the government's proposed gas-to-energy project and inflate the project's cost. It has been noted that a portion of the disputed lands are located in Wales and are within the area for the proposed gas-to-energy project. Consequently, the $900 million estimated price tag associated with the project, as well as its projected 2024 startup date, would inevitably be affected if the government is to proceed with the appeal process. And moving on, President Irfaan Ali yesterday stated that his government is ready for local government elections, or LGE, but only with credible elections machinery in place. The president was at the time responding to a question asked during a press conference he hosted yesterday. To further prove his government's readiness for LGE, he further noted that the PPPC government had already made the necessary budgetary provisions in the budget to facilitate LGE. In March 2021, the National Assembly had approved $1.1 billion for LGE, but no funds were allocated for another house-to-house registration exercise. According to President Ali, it is the role of GCOM to run the elections and advise the government on its readiness. However, he added that the Commission is still dealing with the motion to remove officials who are intricately involved in the alleged rigging of the March 2020 elections. And now let's tell you, plans for a group of guests to enjoy the festivities of a wedding on Sunday evening were ruined after they were forced to return home upon receiving news that there was a theft at the host's house. The guests related that they were all decked out in their wedding outfits and were in a car traveling to La Union on the west coast of Demerara to be part of the celebration. As they approached the Demerara Harbor Bridge, one of them received a phone call informing them that the wedding house was just robbed. Their laughter and chatter ended as they decided to abort their plans of continuing the journey. As such, the driver turned around the car and guests returned home, where, according to them, it is much safer. Later, they learned that it was not a robbery, but rather a case of theft allegedly perpetrated by two individuals who were hired by the wedding host as hairstylist and makeup artist. Get the full details in today's Kaieteur News. And now let's tell you, back to President Irfan Ali. He announced that teachers and other public servants will be eligible before year end for retroactive salary increases. Ali shrugged off questions about when his government will give in to several requests by the Ghana Public Service Union for wage and salary negotiations. The union has accused the government of violating an agreement it has with the government as well as applicable international labor organization conventions. President Ali was keen to note that it is not his government's vision for the discourse to only be about salary increases. Rather, it is actively looking at mechanisms that would allow all public servants to live improved lives. In addition to housing and education programs, which he said are putting money back into the pockets of public servants, the president noted that the government has also implemented measures to support citizens during the pandemic. And with that, we've come to the end of this evening's Newscast. I'm Kevin Smith. Thank you for listening. Coming up next is a short presentation from the publisher of the Kaieteur News, Mr. Glenn Lal, followed by the National Outlook with GHK Lal. And at 19:20, last evening's rebroadcast of the Glenn Lal Show. Tell it as it is. So do stay tuned.
Want value for your advertising dollar? Then place your ads on Kaieteur Radio's Newscasts. Streamed live on 6 different mediums, reaching hundreds of thousands. Advertise today and watch your dollar grow. Call us on 225-8465 or 226-8210 today.
Kaieteur Radio.
Covering Guyana from coast to coast.
Demerara and Essequibo 99.1 FM.
Berbice 99.5 FM. Kaieteur Radio.
Brothers and sisters,